When I was a young boy, the Reader's Digest was a staple in most American homes. It remains popular today, and it's published in 22 different nations around the world. The Reader's Digest's most popular feature is called The Most Unforgettable Character I've Ever Met. And as the title implies, writers profile a subject who had a great impact on their lives. If Reader's Digest ever approached me to write about the most unforgettable person I've ever met, beyond my parents, I would have to choose the late Miss Rosa Parks. I had the great fortune to get to know Miss Parks when Troy University decided to build a museum on our Montgomery campus, which honored her legacy. We owned the very property, the very site where she was arrested on December the 1st, 1955. She was arrested for simply refusing to give up her seat on a Montgomery city bus to a white passenger. We opened that museum in 2000 on the very anniversary of her arrest. And we opened a children's wing of the museum 6 years later. More than 1 million visitors have toured the museum to date. Prominent visitors include civil rights icons such as Miss Coretta Scott King and more than 200 members of the United States Congress, including my friend, the late, great Congressman John Robert Lewis, a Troy native who was awarded an honorary doctorate by Troy University. When I spent time with Miss Parks, I always came away from our meetings marveling at her humility. But she was no shrinking violet. In fact, she was extremely strong, and the way she handled herself was a lesson in active and effective leadership. For example, Miss Parks, like her mentor, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., understood that real leadership unites people. It doesn't divide them. She became the embodiment of Dr. King's philosophy of nonviolent civil disobedience. Those among us who witnessed the turbulent decades of the 50s and 60s must agree that leaders such as Dr. King and Miss Parks not only influenced a better world, their nonviolent philosophy prevented widespread bloodshed on the streets of America. Real leaders also know that talk is cheap. I love the comment by St. Francis of Assisi who said, "Preach the gospel at all times, and when necessary, use words." Ms. Parks knew that it's the walk and not the talk that leads to meaningful change and progress. However, I would also suggest that real leadership occurs when the talk and the walk intersect. In the year 2006, I visited another Rosa Parks library, some 8,500 miles away from our Rosa Parks library in Montgomery. This library was located in the city of Soweto, South Africa, on the outskirts of Johannesburg, and it was operated by the U.S. diplomatic mission to South Africa. They were also amazed that this woman, small in stature, was brave enough to take a stand by sitting in defiance of long-enforced Jim Crow laws. Maybe the greatest lesson Ms. Parks could teach us is this: great leaders have the courage of their convictions. They will act boldly, even in the face of potentially dire consequences. Ms. Parks' lessons in unity, action, and courage should be emulated by many of our leaders today across all the points of the political spectrum. We need public servants who want to bring people together rather than divide them. We need leaders like Miss Rosa Parks.